Hey RAKStars, welcome once more time to another episode of Hands On with RAKStars, a show that we are always glad to prepare for you. Can you believe that we already have reached the outstanding number of 50 successfully transmitted episodes? Yeah, this is our transmission number 51. So thanks for being here with us today. For those joining for the first time, over these hands-on sections, we meet with RAK team members or community members to share and talk about the IoT ecosystem, LoRa or LoRaWAN related projects, experiences, and anything else that you would like to talk about. This is an open space for all of you, our RAKStars community. We are always seeking to connect and learn with all of you. I'm sure some of you are wondering where is Maria Hernandez today, because she's usually the supergirl leading these sessions. Unfortunately, she cannot join today in this stage. However, I send a greeting to her because I know that she definitely will watch the recording later. I'm Johan Macias, and I will be your host next to my colleague Fernando Hernandez. Fernando, it's your first time on the show. Please don't be shy and say hi to our RAKStars.
Yeah, well, hi everybody. Fernando Hernandez here. I'm working as a business development manager for RAK Wireless from time now. While this is my first time in the show, I'm pretty excited to be part of this and have the opportunity to have this first-hand opportunity to chat with our community. So, let's get found. Would you let me know what is our guests for today's session, Johan?
Yeah, our guest today is Christian Paetz, and we will chat with him about many things because he has more than 35 years of experience in academia, science, business, and technology related to engineering, economics, and entrepreneurship. Currently, he's living his dream of focusing on real developer work instead on just businesses. During these sessions, he will introduce LoRain, is the combination of LoRa and Rain, an open source rain sensor based on the RAK3172, which sends data over LoRaWAN. So that sounds interesting. Christian, welcome to the stage.
Hi. Hi, Johan. Hi, Fernando.
Hi, Christian.
Nice being here on the show. And it's also my first time experience. So I share Fernando's excitement.
Okay, that's perfect. Great. We are looking forward to knowing more about the great things that we will share today. And a reminder for our RAKStars is that please don't forget to comment and leave your questions in the comment section. We will collect them to read over the show and address them during the Q&A time. So I will open my my comment sections over here, and I will start to read some of them. This is from John Newman saying hello everyone. This is Travis over here saying what's up, Johan. Everything is going well, Travis over here. You know, we are back in a weekly basis. So that's a great thing over here to now that you are reading today. Hello, Anthony. We really hope that all of you enjoyed this section. And without anything else to add at this moment, let's start with our interview section. So, Christian, we already mentioned you have many years of experience in several fields. You have worked for corporations in different positions, being a professor, funded and successfully managed companies, being part of various board members of small and medium-sized enterprises, and you are now involved in developer work directly instead of just businesses. So definitely you will have I love to share with us today. And that's just one piece of the pie out of everything that you have done. So let's start to get to know you better. So can you share about your journey during all these last years, and also how do you get to the developer work that you are currently working on?
Okay. Um, okay. So I will focus on the business part, just on the private side. I have 4 kids. I'm married. I'm a passionate motorbike rider. But go to business. Believe it or not, I started my business career as a blue-collar worker on a drilling machine. The reason for that is that I grew up in East Germany, in communist East Germany, and guys like me were not allowed to go to university because only those that were read enough and had the right attitude, or these days you would say they are woke enough, made it to university. So I started my career as an ordinary worker, which was cool. Later on, I made it to the university, but as a worker, I learned electronics. And the fun part is we're talking about the middle of the 80s. And at that time, I fell in love with electronics. And because in East Germany, there were no computers. So if you wanted to have a computer, you had to build your own one. And that's what I did. And unfortunately, that initial project from the middle of the 80s got lost. And just recently, I digged out the PCB, and because it's just on my table, this is how my PC from the middle of the 80s looked. CPU, 4 times EEPROM, 1 kilobyte of memory, 8 chips. I even found the Russian original versions for that. So, and this is at the moment my fun project as a kind of vintage to bring my very first project. It was pretty much a clone of a computer that was very popular at that time, a Sinclair Spectrum from the UK. Okay, so this is very back in history. Now let's make fast forward. University, I studied electrical engineering. When I finished study, that was right after the reunification between the 2 Germanys, and it was very hard to get a job as an engineer. Unimaginable these days. Unimaginable. So I tried to stay at the university and worked as a assistant for students. So not an academic job. However, since I was at the university and was drinking coffee every morning with the professor, I finally decided, well, having nothing better to do than write a PhD, which I did. And then I left university and I started my first company by the name of Peppercorn. And we did stuff in data centers. So that was my world. Now, the bad thing here was that I started that company with a friend of mine, and he was definitely the better engineer, at least at that time. So he did all the development stuff and the support and the fun part, and I had to cope with finance, marketing, sales. That's what I did. And I did that the next 15 years. So this company was venture capital backed. We sold it after 4 years into the US, and suddenly my desk was in Newark on the outskirts of New York City, which was a pretty rough time to fly always back and forth because family stayed in Germany. Started a new company doing distribution of C-Wave wireless products for smart homes. Now we're coming closer to the IoT story. At that time, there was the term IoT was not coined yet. So we called it smart home because it was just focused on homes. So this company by the name of C-Wave Europe was the very first company in Europe selling C-Wave devices that were popular in the US at that time, but not in Europe. And so started from ground zero, and this company worked pretty well. So we had over years, we always had triple-digit growth. So to multi-million, and I sold that company in 2016, had to stay for 2 more years. Now, already tapping into the wireless sensor actuator world, I found a little niche, which is water leak detection, which I was under the belief is a super tiny market until I learned it's not. Anyway, after all these years with C-Wave, once I sold the company, I decided to really get out. Number one, get out of C-Wave because I just did it way too long and wrote a book about C-Wave. And in the meantime, by the way, I worked for 5 years as a professor at the university in a very, very boring subject, systems reliability. It's a lot of math, predicting reliability of things. So when I left the C-Wave world, I fell in love with LoRa. Back in 2016, we already started doing first LoRa projects. And from time to time, I found that quite cool as a wireless technology. Meanwhile, the IoT term was coined. So I found myself in the intersection between, well, LoRa as a wireless technology and IoT as an idea to do things. And when I started the third, and hopefully the last company in my life, I tried to fix the arrow I made 20 years ago, ending up in sales and marketing, because in my heart, as you have seen from this, I'm an electrical engineer. And so I did want, and I still do want to do real electronics, and I do enjoy doing software development very close to the hardware. So I'm not that much a database or a data ops guy. I want to be right on the bits and the byte side, and this is what IoT is all about. And here we are.
Super. It's a really interesting story, and yeah, I share your thoughts about, yeah, we are better there where we do what we like to do. Even though if in our beginnings we don't start exactly working on that field, but we are going, if we really love what we studied for, we will continue looking that place where where we feel comfortable working in that field. So there are many things that you shared with us about your journey, but if I ask about the most significant business challenge that you have faced, what would that be?
That's a tough question. I think it's a question that relates to the business part of my career. And I was always the CEO and sometimes personally liable for the bit, because if you get money from the bank, they make you personally liable for that. And with two different companies, I was 2 times essentially ready to file for bankruptcy. So money was gone, and we had made lists who to fire first. And this is a real tough moment. That's a real tough moment. I think this is the moment where it decides if you're a businessman or not. And both times we decided not to do that, to fight to the very end. And both times it was right. We got the turnaround. And one time I went to Berlin and I met a customer. And if this customer, I convinced him to buy all our stock. And that brought us back to life. And the other thing, it's also a financial problem. And we were also able to fix that. So I think this don't give up. Even if things don't look like you like it, don't give up. I think this is the most significant business advice, so to say.
Okay, super. That's talking about from a point of view of experience, living that several times. That's maybe it could sound something like something simple, but it's not that. So please, RAKStars watching this show, don't give up in anything that you are working on right now, because there is still a long journey for you to walk around all those things that you are facing. And let's focus at this moment on one of the most recent companies that you are working on, and that is Aqua-Scope Technology. So, Fernando, you have a few questions about that. We'll go ahead and ask them, please.
Yeah, well, actually, that last point is very relevant, because right now, some of our RAKStars community are being part of the crypto currency and the crypto hardware community. And we have seen that for last months, we are like in some kind of crypto winter for the stage of the market of the things. But those last words from Professor Christian are very relevant to us. So, well, Professor, what I have on my side, I just heard that you maybe just little shared a little bit about this. I mean, when you said that previously you thought that the market space, the market opportunity for the leak detection business could be as little, but now you are thinking differently. So, can you share an overview of Aqua-Scope Technologies and about that particular gap that you noticed in the IoT ecosystem that right now you are trying to fill?
I love to do that. Before I do that, I want to quote a little bit on what you just mentioned on the crypto community. I bought my first Bitcoins back in 2005 at $10 a piece or so, nothing. And I remember it was maybe into 8 or to 10, but it was at 800. And all my friends said, you need to sell. You need to sell. You made so much money. And I didn't have 10,000. It's just a few for fun. I said, no. And then it went back to 200. Ah, shit, I didn't sell. I didn't sell. Then it went up to 2,500. Yes, I made the right decision. No, I don't sell. I went down to 1,100. I think it peaked at some $60,000. And I think today it's some roughly $20,000. Don't give up. The best is yet to come. If we talk about something like this is, on one hand, it's the beauty. On the other hand, it's the challenge of being early in a market. A lot of unpredictability, a lot of volatility of everything. Some products work, some products fly, some products don't fly. Sometimes it's high, sometimes low. Those that love to be in early markets, and crypto is an early market as well as IoT is an early market. We have to live with these ups and downs. If you don't like that, sell sand or coal or oil or crude oil. Well, even there you have it these days. So unpredictability is part of our life. Now back to Aquascope. Unpredictability, that's the issue. The problem is we have water in our homes and sometimes there's a leak. And if you don't find the leak, it becomes devastating. So there is a real problem. And typically insurance companies pay. The insurance companies themselves, they say they only pay 60% of the damage. And we are not counting all the stress, all the lost memories, and all the other stuff that is lost. So it's a real problem. There are a few products in the market, and they're not bad. When we looked at this, the only problem is they all require you to cut in a piece out of your main water supply line. So you need to call a plumber. You cut into it, they put something between, and then it works or does not work. Now, this is a pretty high hurdle, and that's why, although the products from the competitors are not super expensive, we're talking about $500 to $1,000 on average, very, very few people use it. It's a high hurdle. So we came to the idea we need to design a leak protection system that everybody can install, and if he does not like it, removes it again. If you want to do leak protection, you need to do two things. First, you need to understand there is a problem. And two, you need to act according to the problem. Now, the typical way to understand there's a problem is a little sensor like this, and they have these little pins. They call it pogo pins. They are metal, and if water comes to the pins and connects that, this is the idea there's water. Nice, works. You can sell it at ridiculously low prices, and you can buy it at ridiculously low prices. But the problem of this is when the water is here, it's already too late. You need to find the water when it's still in the wall, when it's still behind the plaster wall. So the design we came up with is, let me take one here. So is this. And this is a sensor. It's pretty much a microphone. And you screw that on a certain piece. So we give out guidance how to do that. You screw that into a water system, typically under your faucet. And one sensor is enough to monitor the whole home. Why? Because this is using acoustics. So we are technically listening into the water pipe. And this is what the name comes from. You know, a stethoscope where the doctor listens to your heartbeat, or a microscope where a scientist looks into the small things, or a telescope where other scientists look far into the sky. This is the Aquascope. So we look into the water system. So stethoscope. I was sometimes had the idea at a trade show that we dress like doctors with this thing here, and just to grab some attention. Maybe we do that at the CES trade show in January. I don't know. So this gave the name, and this is the innovation. And you can screw it in, you can screw it out, easy. And then for the shut up portion, we have something like this. Now this is, if you shut off water, you have the only way to shut off water if you don't want to cut into the pipe is to use the existing shut-off valve. And this looks like this. This is a shut-off valve. Open, close. And we developed a motor, by the way, LoRa as well. And you just put that on top and you screw the handle, and that's it. And now a LoRa signal sent here will open and close the valve. And if you don't like it, you open the through things and you remove it again. Super simple, super easy to install. So this is the innovation of Aquascope. And both have LoRa. Why LoRa? Because we come out of Germany. Americans would probably not choose LoRa at that moment, but in Germany, we have basements that are sometimes really in the rock. So Wi-Fi, C-Wave, Zigbee, Bluetooth, whatever, you don't get down there. The only way to get a wireless signal into this basement is LoRa. That's why we picked LoRa.
Oh, great. Well, one point more about LoRaWAN. This is a real use case scenario for those maybe that are seeking about water metering options, because this is the most one of the most popular use cases for LoRa. This is like a live testimonial that actually LoRa has this high degree of penetration. I mean, maybe in the old castles that are already present in Europe. And very interesting, this approach is a very disruptive option that instead of cutting the plumbs, you are just putting the devices without making this kind of introduction that was coming to my mind. The remembering that in fact the way that the stethoscope was invented was because a doctor was shy to put his ear near the lady's breath. So he was trying to do a non-intruder way of hearing the sounds of the body. So yeah, it's like the same situation. Very well done. Yes, please, Christian.
Go ahead. No, you're. I just like that comparison between the stethoscope and the Aquascope, because we're really listening and we are amplifying signals. Of course, it sounds easier than it is. The signal alone does not give you enough information. Like a doctor needs a lot of training to understand from what he's hearing what is the problem. The same we have, and we have a little microcomputer that does that for us, and the usual artificial intelligence algorithms, etc. pp. We use in that little microcontroller. And this is also one of these ideas of IoT. You would expect there's a lot of computing power needed. But these days, you get these little tiny $1 chips that have 32-bit at 200 megahertz. So a real PC 10 years ago. So we have a lot of computing power, and we do all the algorithmic in the device. By the way, the algorithmic is written in assembler because it needs to be power efficient. That was a very interesting experience. It would be another talk. Why do assembler these days? But anyway, so this is also one of the developments we see in IoT, that more and more of the development needs to go back to the edge device or to the sensor as such. So to make it more robust.
Great. Well, right that on that point, maybe could you share a little bit more, maybe without that rigorous, deepen knowledge for the case, but a little bit more about how this artificial intelligence is working for the for the product, and yeah, the use case that you are applying here. You already mentioned it, LoRaWAN. Just mentioned about artificial intelligence being applied here. So could you please share a little bit more about the use case that this technology has right now?
Well, the use case for all this is water leak protection. So we connect the device to a water distribution system in a private home, in kindergarten, schools, office buildings, name it. We'll listen to the thing. And what we learn is we pretty much learn about three things. Number one, there is water take that is ordinary. That's what people want, flushing toilet, taking a shower, whatever. Then there's others where we are 100% sure this is not caused by humans. And very simple. In that case, it's an alarm, no question matter. And then there's always this gray zone where it could be caused by humans or not. And this is where the more intelligence comes into play to look for patterns to make that decision. So if it's super clear, you don't need any intelligence. If the writing is on the wall, you say, this is bad, this is good. The problem arises when there is this gray zone and you don't know really, is it yes or no? And in our case, number one, the likelihood of having a water leak in Europe is about 2% per year. So 1 out of 40, 2.5%. 1 out of 40 households experience a water leak per year. So you have a chance every 40 years it hits to you. So technically once in your lifetime. That means it's a very rare case. If it happens, your system must detect it. So there's no way. On the other hand, if you really want to annoy somebody, you have a lot of false alarms. So after 10 false alarms, people just turn off the thing and miss the real one. So this is the technical challenge where you need a lot of double checking and triple checking to make sure, yes, this is a leak, or no, it's not.
Well, that sounds like a big work in order to fine tuning the device for this application, right? Well, while preparing for this session, I was trying to look a little bit more information about Aqua-Scope Technologies, and I found that even your competitors right now are like trying to having with you some kind of partnership, because the other part of this innovation is the way you are closing the plumbing, not only the way that you are sensing on the plumbing, but the way that your actuator is working for closing the plumbing. So if somebody that right now is listening to this live session is interested in your products and services, how can they find? What can they find?
So you probably refer to this thing here, or
Yeah.
we have others for the European type valves. Looks a little bit different, but at the end, it's the same idea. Super easy to install, retrofittable motor. And this is more of a mechanical challenge than an electrical challenge, because you send a signal on, you send a signal off. This is simple. But the mechanics is, now this one here is a new valve. Easy. I can turn that with 2 fingers. If the thing is 10 years old, you don't turn that with 2 fingers anymore. Sometimes you cannot even turn it with a hand. So you need a very strong motor. And at the same time, the motor needs to be small, because if I put a big motor here, plumbers don't follow rules. So I come from the electricity, and electrical installers, they follow rules. So if there are 3 cables, they use 3 cables. If it's 5 cable, they use 5 cable. If the distance is 1.50 meters, they do 1.50 meters. Why? Because if they do something wrong, somebody may die. Plumbers, oh, this works. I just put it there. So sometimes you have to shut off valve, and it comes from here, it goes here, and it goes right back here, and you don't have much space. It's not allowed. It's not it's against recommendations. Nevertheless, you do that. That's why we had to make it small. So yes, we have partners that private brand the device. So we have one version for Z-Wave, we have one version for Wi-Fi, we have one version for LoRaWAN, and people can integrate that, and that's part of the business. That's correct.
Oh, great. Yeah, please, Johan.
Okay, I'm wondering what if someone else is looking for something else in your website, what they can find.
Well, they find all our products, as always. Now, the website could be better, I have to admit. Now, this is what the engineers come to say, well, as long as the information is there, I give a shit on the design. A marketeer would certainly have a different opinion on that. And if I find some time, I can discuss with real design guys to do that. So at the very end, the website tells about the products. We have a web shop where you can buy the products, not only the ones I showed you, but a few more, all related around water and protection, and download manuals, etc. So the usual stuff.
Okay.
And www.aquascope.com with the dash in the middle, because otherwise you will get to maybe websites. Yeah, you see it. Correct.
Yeah.
In English and in German.
Okay, perfect. So that's all about the overview of what Aqua-Scope Technologies is, how you ended up with that name, which is a very interesting story. And right now, we are really interested to know more about Lorraine. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about open source technologies, and why do you decide to boost a project like Lorraine in the LoRa or LoRaWAN community? Could you share more about this initiative you had for all the community?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, why? Well, excessive rain or heavy rain is another problem for not leaks, but water problems. The likelihood of that is only a fraction of the drinking water problem, but it's still a problem. And so it makes sense to have a sensor that measures the rain level, not just there's rain or not a digital sensor, but the amount of rain. You can also use that for irrigation control or just to understand if there's enough rain or not. So that's why a product like that assists. The other reason to do that was during the development of our core products. And the rain sensor is not one of the core products. It's not, the core product is this Aquascope sensor and the motor. We used a lot of open source stuff, of course, with Arduino and libraries, etc. And I think it's just a good habit to give something back if you got something. So that's why I came to the idea I need to do something that is open source completely. Now, yeah, we can still sell the product, but honestly, this thing does not make us rich or not. This is the product. So it stands on the outside and it has this funnel, and on the point of the funnel, the water goes in. And if we open that, we see this. So if it's this, the water fills up here. When the bucket is filled, it clicks. Then the water goes out, and then it fills this side until it clicks again. Here's a little magnet, and this box here has the electronics inside. So it's not super complicated. And because it's not super complicated, we want to make that also a project to teach people how to do a sensor. We had already a few, I think 4 or 5 schools here in Germany that said, well, this is cool because we want to train our children, our students, to do IoT project. And this is something they can really use afterwards. And inside this, in the box, there is, of course, the batteries. And if you would open it, usually it's screwed. Then there is a little electronics, and it has a little read contact and a little temperature sensor. And that's pretty much it. And the rest is that LoRa module. So what we did, we developed the thing. Now this is not that easy. So that's why if you go to our online shop, shop.aquascope.com, we even sell people only the enclosure. Say, okay, if you want to do your own electronics, you're welcome to do that. On the GitHub, you find the schematic, you find all the Gerber files. And by the way, maybe we even get a discount sooner or later from GLC PCB if you make it. On the other hand, GLC PCB is so cheap, even a 5% discount, we're talking about 20 cents. That's not what keeps us up at night. So the product as such, it works with LoRaWAN. Of course, it's based on the RAK module, the most recent one. And one of the reasons to do that, and you will certainly ask the question anyway later on, so I answer it beforehand, is that particular module, the RAK3172, has support for Arduino RD with the RUI3. And if we talk about, we want to teach people how to do things and we want to lower the barrier to get people into the IoT world, this is the way to go. Arduino makes it easy. So with the Arduino software sketch that we have on GitHub with the electronics, people can do it or not, or they buy a kit where we give all the electronics and say, hey, you make the software. Well, we help you a little bit. Here is a sketch that works, but you're welcome to change it. The usual way to do it. Yeah, at the moment, you just see the GitHub link. So the only missing point, by the way, is, and you find that if you look at 3D for the enclosure, we don't have a 3D for the enclosure because we are no 3D designers. If somebody feels compelled to make a 3D design of enclosure or even improve it, make it more fashionable, welcome to do it. From our side, we provide the software and we provide the how-to. You see it on the website, how to solder the 12 soldering points to make it a product. And there are a lot of projects in the world based on LoRaWAN, where people collect environmental data, pollution, temperature, humidity, and this perfectly fits into this world.
So as you heard,
the real reason was to give something back and do something open source, just because we want to do it open source.
Yeah, and when we mean open source, we are really talking about open source. You can find all the schematic files over here, the board files over here, and everything that you need to build your own sensor. This is about the enclosure that we are looking for someone that helps us to design a really good enclosure. So the project is open to contributions. So you are invited to start building yours. There are several ways to start, and one of those is getting the complete kit that you can find in the store that Christian was talking about before. And yeah, you have everything to get started with Lorraine. So I'm pretty interested about why you choose RAK Wireless for your project. So let's talk a little bit about our relationship. What about RAK Wireless? Where do you first learn of us, and why do you choose RAK Wireless over the competition?
Well, I learned about RAK Wireless from the helium world. So this is where it gets attention, but this was not this. I just heard about it. And then there's an interesting story, and maybe the guy I'm talking about is in that conversation. I don't know. If yes, hi. At CES trade show in Las Vegas in January, a guy stopped by because he was interested in this. And we started talking. And talked, and then at the end, I realized this is a smart guy, and I invited him for dinner. And it turned out that he is doing partly development work for RAK Wireless. But we talked about a lot of things, and I really enjoyed talking to a smart person. The next day, he came back to our trade show booth, and he said, "Hey, do we want to get out for dinner again?" I invite you this time. Oh, I found it polite. So we had another night talking, real tech talk, nerd to nerd. And as I said before, so I do enjoy talking to intelligent engineers. And so we had a great time together. And of course, he was also talking about RAK and the upcoming plans for the Arduino. And that set a trigger in my brain that, well, if this happens, bingo. Also, I learned that another developer of you is very active in the Arduino open source LoRa development, Bernd. So I said, wow, that is cool. So when the RAK module, the RUI3, arrived in the market, I think it was May, June timeframe or so, right? I was immediately, I had already the PCB ready. So I was really keen on doing something like that and be very, very early with this, which always has, as I said in the beginning, its price. So the module works, but yes, there's a long list of I wish to have. First and foremost, by the way, documentation could be better, but this is known. I mean, this is a project, this is an early stage of development, but it gets compensated. So the not having enough documentation gets overcompensated by the fun of having this little, pretty inexpensive and easy to use module to get into the LoRaWAN world. So after having first steps, we decided to pretty much standardize all our sensors on this. Also, I learned about the super low power consumption, just as a technical feature. And yes, before that, we developed with the STM32 and a LoRa chip, so we know how complicated it is to get the power consumption down. So when I looked at that, I said, wow, this was good work. That was good work. If we talk about battery-operated sensors, it's all about battery consumption. So everything is battery consumption. So that was the technical reason, was the very low power consumption. And the more business reason was the easy-to-use module, which opens us the path into the Arduino environment.
Perfect. You already mentioned a little bit about RUI3. And by the way, RAK Wireless has been investing strongly in software tools that make hardware implementation much more straightforward. And you already mentioned that you have been working a little bit with RUI3, and I also check in the project that the main firmware is based on RUI3 as well. However, I would like to know if you already heard about WizToolbox, our software tool that can be used to setting up parameters on the devices that are based on our modules. Or if you haven't tried yet, maybe any comment or expectation about a software tool for setting up parameters on LoRa and LoRaWAN devices.
I have to admit, it's on my list of. I like to look into it, and I think Ken also mentioned that explicitly when we had a video call. So the RAK Wireless CEO. So it sounds interesting. I didn't find time because at the moment this is still a lot of let's say very low level development. It's not just configuration of the thing. There are plenty of things which is up to come. I think if you look into the forums, you see the firmware update over the air is one of these why I need to have it feature. And it's not easy. I do understand that. But you guys did a terrific job in getting the power consumption down. So the firmware update over the air can't be that complicated. Anyway, so there will be more. I think the RUI3, it's not even, maybe it's 7 months into the market.
Yeah.
So it's a bit a tough decision to make products based on something that is that early. On the other hand, I know from all the guys that are working for it, if you chat the LinkedIn and all this, that there is a lot of years of knowledge in LoRa in that. So this is not, well, we do something and let's see if it works. So that's why we were trusting it enough to also make commercial products based on that. And if you just go with the LoRaWAN and simple sensor, it's perfectly fine. I mean, we typically try to develop things a little bit to the edge, then it starts getting interesting about reaction times and all this. So this was why I said a little bit better documentation could help there. But I have to admit that most of the people will not do what we want to do with that chip.
Yeah, great. Well, actually, you just was mentioning Bernd Geekse. He is one of our RAKStars, and actually, he's also a Deutsch guy. I mean, he was born also in Germany, but nowadays he is living in Philippines. That's actually one of the things that RAK is about. It's about community. And maybe if you have some kind of a struggle for the documentation part, you always will find a person who knows about this. And especially about the community, during this session, I have been checking that our community is quite active right now, participating in the YouTube channel. So maybe, Johan, could you share with us some of the questions that we are seeing right now in live from the YouTube channel?
Yeah, for sure. I was collecting a few of them just to share in this screen right now. And let's start with this one. Someone else, Anthony, is saying that I agree, this product is fantastic. It just needs some tweaking in different areas, and I think they got a winner. Okay. Anthony was asking as well about what about freezing temperatures when it comes to the liquid detection?
Well, of course, if it's freezing, it's freezing. That is the moment where the measurement technology does not work, but this is true for everything. That's why we call that a rain sensor and not an ice sensor. So it can only measure rain, not ice. If rain turns into ice or into snow, well, if it's snow, it will maybe melt over time, but not immediately. And typically you can say that snow shrinks to about 1/10 of the volume if it turns into water. But if it's really freezing, then the thing doesn't, well, the thing does not measure anymore.
Okay.
If we look at the applications, irrigation, if it's freezing, you will not do that, for sure not. And if it's freezing, you don't have the water problem at that moment in time. You may have it later on. That's a different story. So if you leave your house and your pipes freeze, then you have a big problem when it's melting.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that looks incredible. I think that has many use cases. That's right as well. Before talking about the project documentation, Travis was saying that he was checking out one of your kids the other day, and that he likes your open source firmware on there. That's great. And we also have a few comments over here that, yeah, RUI3 is a hard call right now.
There is one comment about use case in Africa. We deal with poor smallholder farm communities in Africa and Caribbean. This rain sensor will be wonderful for them. It's by George Newman.
Yeah, I think the challenge there is how to get the data. Now, we do know that there's meanwhile even a satellite communication. I'm not sure if poor smallholder farms can afford that. But I think it's more having a LoRaWAN infrastructure. If you have that in place, yes, measuring rain and then just add the portion of water to the soil that is really needed is certainly a use case.
Yeah, and there is another one regarding like the technical part of the way of the product works, and is from Anthony. He says, can this differentiate the signals to the unit to identify different items going to drink, for example, different ducks?
Can this differentiate to signals to the unit to identify different items going to drink? I'm not really sure if I understand the question.
Well, maybe if Anthony is still there, Could you explain a little bit more about your question? I think that maybe he's trying to say that the way of differentiating the different kind of sounds in the plumbing, or I think is like that.
Okay, I was still stuck on the Lorraine, and said what sound Lorraine? No, there's no sound.
For sure.
Wow. So now talking about the sound of the Aquascope system, we look. There's a lot of information in the sound in the pipe, but we rarely see sound outside the pipe. To be more precise, the sound portion that's interesting to us is low frequency between 0 hertz and 40 hertz, which is called subsonar. This is also the reason subsonar is very known from submarines, because they use subsonar to detect the distance to the ground when they're underground. So they also take advantage of the fact that water is a very, very good conductor for subsonar sound. So that's why we can hear everything inside the pipe, but we rarely hear things outside the pipe. So no dogs barking, no truck coming by. This is totally different frequency range, and we don't see that. Now, you can do a lot of things. Once knowing that, we understand when water is taken. The same thing. So you could put that on the water pipe, and you know how much water flows through the pipe. This is possible. But typically we cover it for the whole home. So we want to understand what's the the water consumption for the whole home. This is a little side harvest. So we look for water leaks. As a little side function of the device, we monitor the water consumption, which is in a country like Germany where we have enough water. It's not a problem, but I do understand in Southern California and other areas of the world, the monitoring of the water consumption may be a big deal, rather than protecting from water leaks.
Okay, right. Well, yes, just for completing the question regarding the African or Caribbean countries, yeah, and the coverage of LoRaWAN networks there, George Newman has said, yes, we will first put LoRaWAN network in place. Yeah. For that smallholder communities. Yeah. Okay. Well, you, I mean, in your career path, you have been enabled to support many people and companies to create innovative technology-related projects. Yeah, I think at both sides, at the academic side and also in the business part. So do you have any particular technical or business advice for those IoT entrepreneurs that are just in the early stage of their projects, and maybe some kind of tick or trick that could be applied in their journey?
Well, I think I already relayed a few advices. It's just coming back. So Anthony, he just put in the comment. So it's about feeding dogs. So I think it's more talking about this product. So you could centrally turn on, turn off water on the different, I don't know, cages or whatever for individual dogs. And yes, that would work. That would work. It's a simple LoRaWAN device. So if you have a LoRaWAN network and a schedule, that could be done. By the way, in our application, we have something like that, what we call a timer. And the application for this is if you like a school or a kindergarten, you know that you don't need water on a weekend. So why not shutting it off automatically? Vacation homes, etc. I remember when I was young, and you see I'm a pretty old man, my parents used to turn off the water when we went on vacation. These days, you don't do that anymore because it's inconvenient. With this, you can do it automatically, even from your mobile phone. And the other question I've just said is measuring temperature. This is true. The good thing is we measure the temperature of the water, not beside the water. We measure it in the water because we have contact to the water. So it's pretty precise. And we report that into our own cloud, where you have a cloud-to-cloud interface. And if you don't want to deal with our cloud, it also supports MQTT and a JSON web interface. So This is a little bit developer thinking. We do understand that developers have security and privacy concerns. So if you want to stay away from the evil other people's cloud, you're welcome to do that. You can still use the product. So, and now it was, it was the advice. I'll need to do that here. Thanks.
It's a leakage
you were
alarm.
asking for business advice.
Yeah.
Advice. You know what just happened?
Yeah.
My thing has an alarm. And you know why? The thing is battery operated, and I removed that external thing, and that says it's an alarm. So I can also shut off the thing by putting that on again, and then it stays silent. So this is one of the alarms we detect if somebody removes that outside thing. Come on, welcome to the world. So it sends an alarm. So the thing acted according to spec. Yeah, so... well, we talked about IoT. This was the term. And as I said before, I still believe that IoT is in its infant state. So we're at the beginning of a journey. And I think it's a market that has a lot to offer from the business point of view. And it has even more to offer from the technology point of view. Because all the real interesting things, and today, the most interesting thing in hardware development is power it. How to get the power there, and batteries, getting power down, energy harvesting, and all this stuff. This is really cool. So sensors is cool, and energy harvesting, powering products, managing battery lifetime. So these are the things that are interesting at the moment, also in terms of software development. There are other interesting areas in the world. Yes, on the other end, supercomputing and all this massive parallel computing. That was, by the way, where I wrote my PhD on the right other end of the game on supercomputers. So this means IoT is, yeah, just Travis, he comment, don't let power be the last part of your design. Correct. It's the starting point. And yes, a lot of people at the very end, they figure out, oh, well, let's measure the power consumption. And then you find out, oops, surprise. And quite interesting that the best power management chips at the moment, you can buy or you cannot buy because they are on allocation. That's why this product here, we had to redevelop because we couldn't get the TI chip for the power management. Very bad thing. So in general, IoT is a good place to be at the moment.
Yeah, it will make a huge impact in the future for many use cases. So wrapping up, a question that we used to conclude this amazing section is about if you have a message for our community of entrepreneurs, makers, and engineers, what it would be. It could be something in general, not exactly a business focus on another field focus, is general advice. You already gave some of them, like don't give up and other ones. But just to conclude, what that message would be.
Yeah, I was thinking, so what is this farewell message? And my farewell message would be stay hungry, stay foolish. And this is a very, very well-known quote from Steve Jobs, which he quoted from an old catalog from the 80s. He used that term on his very famous Stanford speech. If you want to listen to a real good speech, the Stanford speech of Steve Jobs is definitely worth to listen. So I watched it a few times, and stay hungry, stay foolish, that pretty much matches my own thinking and my aspiration.
Okay, that's great. Congrats, Christian, on those cool projects that you have been working during your career. And I invite our audience again to check out the LoRaWAN project and the other products that Aqua-Scope Technologies offers, to have them in mind whenever they need something similar. And I also invite them to continue joining us for the upcoming episodes and look into our YouTube playlist, where we collect all the recordings of all our previous transmissions. This is your show to continue learning and stay up to date about what's happening in our community. Um, so I think that we are successfully reaching the end of our session. I will start sharing some of the last comments that our audience is commenting in the comment sections. And I don't know, maybe Fernando have another anything else to add before closing.
No, just for my side, I am very grateful. This has been a very insightful time alongside with Dr. Christian Paetz and also our community members here. So, well, I just eagering for having another invite to the show at the earliest opportunity to be here with you. And for Christian, thank you so much for your time, for sharing so openly to us all of your thoughts and experience.
I have one more, and this is more for the people that are in the US or that want to travel to the US early next year. So if you want to shake hands and get out for a beer, I will be at CES in Las Vegas at a Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. I think it's 5th to 8th of January. You will find us in the Hall D as Aquascope. So Hall D, well, check the website. We will put in the number, and looking forward to have more geek to geek chats or whatever you prefer. I really looking forward to meet people in person again. So CES.
And you already know that the Christian is open to accept dinner invitations. So
yes.
Okay, folks. You already know you can continue watching us every Friday. Happy hacking, folks. Bye bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Good.